start. First, I want to welcome you all to this webinar called Preparing the DNS for the Post-Quantum Cryptography Transition that is co-organized by Afnic, the .fr Registry and Research Center, and the IGF Dynamic Coalition Internet Standard Security and Safety. My name is Walter Naters van der Borg, and I am your host and moderator for today. I'm a consultant on internet governance based in the Netherlands and the coordinator of IS3C, as we call the Dynamic Coalition for short. And we collaborated with the UN IGF Secretariat to host this webinar. And who hosts this webinar? I need to say that this is recorded. It will be later put online so that people who are not able to join the meeting can look at it at their own time, and so that the topic gets better known as well. Just to explain very shortly, in a brief way, where this is coming from. IS3C is a dynamic coalition at the Internet Governance Forum, and we have the main goal is to assist internet standards that are security related and of a newer generation, faster deployed, so that everybody becomes more secure and safer on the internet. We have published several reports which you can find on our website. And I will not go into that today because we did that 3 weeks ago. What happened is that late in 2024, Afnic commissioned IS3C to write a report on the technical, political, and social implications of the advent of quantum computing. This project was led by Elif Kiso-Cortez and João Moreno Foucault, presented its outcome at the IGF 2025 in Lillestrøm in Norway under the title Social, Political, and Technical Impacts of IoT and PQC Policies. And you can find the link here in the chat that I'm now sending to you. When we presented the report, we noticed that it got a lot of traction, but Afnic and IS3C also agreed that this report would not be enough to change the deployment of PQC. So we decided to enter a second phase aimed at turning theory of the report into practice. And this webinar is the second in a series of 3. The first was held in February and was more generic in nature. And the third will be on Thursday, 2 April, that we will be announcing very soon, and will be on the routing layer and the necessary transition to PQC. Simultaneously, we have put out a call for experts to join 2 working groups regarding PQC, one for the DNS ecosystem and another for routing. And I will return to this topic later in this webinar. With me today are 3 speakers, Benoît Ampeau, Caspar Schutijzer, and Maarten Botterman. And you will be invited to ask questions after the final presentation of Maarten. After this round, I will return with news on the working groups, and after a final round of questions, we will close the webinar in about an hour to 1 hour, 15 minutes from now. But let me first introduce Benoît Ampeau to you. He is the Director of Partnerships and Innovation and Head of Afnic's Research Lab, and is the sponsor of this project. He will touch upon why the timely and coordinated PQC transition is important for Afnic, but also the challenges Afnic foresees for the DNS transition. So, Benoît, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Wout, for this introduction, and I'm very happy to talk to and exchange with all of us here during this webinar. So first of all, I am, like you said, the Director of Afnic Partnerships and Innovation, which means I'm also the head of the Afnic Labs team, which is doing some both experimentation and research on DNS at large. So the question that brings us together today is quite simple but important. So how do we prepare for the DNS post-quantum cryptography transition without breaking the DNS services and the internet that depends on this transition? So for Afnic, it's not an abstract questions. It's very both research but also operational reality. So let me try to jump to here. So why Afnic we engage now on this topic? So We manage like 4.3 million domain names as of today, with more or less 20% of DNSSEC signed domain names. And since 2010, DNSSEC protects the integrity of DNS responses for French TLD, and this protection relies on cryptographic signatures, RSI yesterday, elliptic curve today, and tomorrow, post-quantum cryptography. So why now? So three main reasons. First, the threat already exists. So the risk that you know of harvesting now, decrypt later. Attackers can collect some DNS data signed today and decrypt it in 10 to 15 years when quantum computer will be available. Second, for instance, on local and national level, our security national agency impose a timeline. So, for instance, in France, it's 2027 for certification requirements, 2030 for mainstream adoption, and 2035 for a full transition. So, third, this infrastructure migration takes time, as you know, so we cannot improvise a DNS transition. So the core challenges. So it is global, it is complex. We enter the real challenge. Changing a signature algorithm is not just swapping RSA elliptic curve for Falcon 512, for instance. It means rethinking the entire chain. Think of it this way. You are not just replacing one component, you are disrupting every component that uses it. From our test from late last year, in the tab, you can show that sign time with ECDSA takes, for instance, 6 seconds in our test bed. And with Falcon, it took up to more than 56 seconds, and it's like more or less 8 to 9 times slower. Same for zone file, which is the zone file is 4 times larger, and the verification of the signature using CDSA, it's 4 times slower again. So scale this to real .efr infrastructure, for instance, where thousands of queries per second are received and responded per day and every second, sorry, it matters. So this is not a detail, it's a major operational shift even for us. Um, Not a crucial lesson from now, a crucial lesson from a few years ago. The case of Psych, super singular isogeny key encapsulation, sorry, algorithm. It was a NIST round 4 finalist, a quantum resistant algorithm by design. The reality was that it has been broken in 1 hour on a classical PC. So the lesson, and this is critical, a post-quantum algorithm is designed to resist quantum computing power, but it does not guarantee resistance to classical cryptography and crypto analysis and crypto breaking. So why? Because the mathematical weaknesses that quantum breaks are different from classical weaknesses. Psych survived rigorous academic review, then a traditional math attack broke it. So as a consequence, we cannot deploy untested algorithm first, and maybe we also need hybrid approaches, and we need rigorous standardization. Just to show you very visually the differences between the algorithm, and you can see, so in pink, this is a key, and in green, the signature. And you can see the differences between the sizes on both key or signature size. So you see there is an impact between ECDSA, the elliptic curves, and the other ones, such as Falcon, Mayo, and Sphinx. And these are picture and results taken from the last presentation we made in France with our scientific council to explain you what we've done in our test bed. So we had created 100,000 domain names, sample file, and apply to it different algorithm. We use a virtual machine. We use bind with the uh, liboqs library and the OQS bind container, which is IDN developed also and proposed and make available to the community. And here are the results. So the Falcon algorithm signing time is like 19 seconds. The verification takes up to 23 seconds, and the zone file is only 55 megabytes. For Mayo, it's more or less similar with a slightly better balance. But if you look at the Sphinx Plus, it took almost 2 seconds for signing. That's like more than 30 minutes for on a four-core CPU machine, the one we choose. And the zone file is a bit less than 500 megabytes. So clearly, from our test, the Sphinx Plus has been rejected, like not viable for production environment. So why does this matter? These are not academic numbers, they are Afnic measurements. They tell us which algorithms scale and which ones don't. That's why we are also very concerned and looking for cooperating also with people on this topic. So now go into the critical challenges I identify for the transition. So being very careful, also participating and doing monitoring on IETF standardization. So as of today, the validation procedure are not yet finalized. It's in progress, and it's a hot topic at IETF. We can see there is also a discussion about terminology, about post-quantum traditional hybrid schemes. And we also have uh, the dedicated RFC for engineers, for instance. We also have the resolver readiness issue. As of today, up to our knowledge, zero resolvers are validating PQC algorithm today. And also today, in the way the resolvers are working, the algorithm selection order matters, which means it does not select the PQC algorithm, even if there is also PQC algorithm available in the zone. Hybrid signatures also. We have interoperability issues, or it's still unclear across the ecosystem. The HSM, the hardware security models, we are using them, for instance, on day-to-day basis to sign our domain names. Their performance are still unknown at production scale. We have and we see vendors, and they have new hardwares and firmwares roadmap, but it's also work in progress on the sides. We have also the key rollover complexity. We can say that the PQC transition is like no flag day acceptables. And we have ZSK key SKI migration, like critical cinematic and order. And so we also have a lot of open questions about the transition and the phasing. And last, also the zone transfer impact, because since we have much larger zones, we have larger messages that force TCP fallback. So transition will depend on collective actions. So I just listed some of them. No single entity can do this alone. That's true. IETF must finalize and standards. Vendors, software developers, software vendors or providers must also ship PQC for productions, and performance optimizations matters a lot. Registries such as Afnic, but also registrars must test, measure, and report and share data. This is also part of the job we are doing today. On the resolver side, they will have to deploy also PQC validation And if we are looking at the entire stage, even now, some resolver operators are not even doing DNS-sec validation, for instance. So it could be a real issue. And most importantly, PQC affects the entire DNS ecosystem. And we have a look at all the stacks and the mechanism and the components we are using on day to day, so such as TLS. TLS is already supporting PQC, but it has to be deployed at large. We have also the registry registrar protocols such as EPP, and we need certificates, and we also have a look today in TLSA records, which are records from the DNS in the DNS, and they may contain PQC keys, which will be much larger than now. So DNS is not cannot be seen as an island. PQC cascades everywhere. So our commitment is to be able to share, to do like transparent participation also in IOTF on other working groups, such as the one we are today in IGF and I3C. And it's about not being leading, but be part of it. The timeline, very key short messages. First, quantum computers will break RSA and ECC. That impacts DNSSEC, TLS, and PKI. Second, so we need to test PQC in our DNS infrastructure right now. Secondly, we should do an inventory of all the cryptography dependencies we have as an organization. So not just DNS, but also TLS, EPP, SSH certificates, so forth and so on. And we need to identify the critical path and plan on our side the transition timeline, sorry. And last but not least, please join the effort. Quite many people already had done some very important tests, shared results, and we need to spread the word that we need to raise awareness, and also it's very easy. You can engage with working groups at very local, national, but also international levels. So please join the efforts. And now I'm very happy to give the floor to Caspar for the presentation he will make from the SIDN board. Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you, Benoit. There's one thing perhaps that we forgot to mention up front, and perhaps you can do that in one sentence. We're talking about DNS, and maybe there are a few people in the audience that are wondering what is it that we're talking about. So could you please in one line say what the DNS system is, and then I'll give the floor to introduce Caspar.
So DNS is a core component of the internet infrastructure, which aims to be able to do the mapping between human memorizable names, which are called domain names, to technical identifiers such as IP addresses, but not only IP addresses. DNS now extended to many services for emailing, but also accessing some Web3 wallet, for instance, if we taking very recent example. So this is the core naming services that do the mapping between a name and technical identifiers.
Thank you very much. That was a very good one sentence,
Thank
and
you.
I think it shows that this is the core of the internet we're talking about, of one of the cores, and that makes it so important to make this transition timely and in a coordinated way. So
Thank
the
you.
next speaker is Caspar Schutijzer. He is a researcher at SIDN Labs, and he will present on the research he conducted with his colleagues into post-quantum cryptography and the results of his research. So Caspar, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Indeed, so I'm Caspar Schutijzer, who works for the .nl top-level domain operator called SIDN. And indeed, there we do research into how to make DNSSEC post-quantum. And here I will show a selection of what we have done and what we are doing. Benoit already explained why DNS is a bit of a special protocol in terms of making it post-quantum and the requirements that DNS has, so I will not expand too much on this, but indeed, the fact that public keys and signatures are about to become much bigger, that is an important problem in this space. So one past study that I will show is the work that we did on evaluating two post-quantum algorithms in DNSSEC signing for TLD operators. And then later I will discuss or briefly present the current work that we're doing. This is a study that I did with my colleagues here at SIDN Labs. We looked into two post-quantum algorithms, Falcon and Mayo, in how they would work for signing for use in DNSSEC for TLD operators like us. And I must say there is some overlap with the research that Benoit presented. But yeah, there's also maybe some interesting differences. So in our study, we looked at a couple of variables. So we tested 4 algorithms in total, which is 2 post-quantum algorithms and 2 algorithms that we use today in DNSSEC. We tested it with 3 zone files. So the .nl zone file, the .se and the .nu zone file. And another important aspect is that we also tested with the support for AVX2 that some post-quantum algorithms have. That is an extension for the CPU infrastructure or CPU instructions that make certain operations faster, and that does impact how these new algorithms perform. So here a quick overview of the algorithms that we tested. So here at the top, you see the algorithms that we use today in DNSSEC. So there's RSA and elliptic curve. And then here are the 2 post-quantum algorithms that we tested. So that's Falcon 512 and Mayo with parameter set 2. But it is an older version of Mayo. Since then, a new version of Mayo has been released. And we looked at the zone files. And like Benoit already described, in some cases, the zone file grows quite a bit. So here, this part we can ignore, that's grayed out on purpose. What we see here is the zone file size increase for the .nl zone. So we see that an unsigned zone is 1 gigabyte in size. And when we use algorithms that we use today for DNSSEC, so ECC and RSA, the zone is 3 gigabytes or 4.5. But if we use the Mayo algorithm, then the zone file becomes 5 gigabytes, more or less. So that's comparable to what we're used to. But if we use the Falcon algorithm, zone becomes 12 gigabytes. And one might think like, okay, the zone file is 3 times as big or 4 times as big. That's not really a big deal because disk space is cheap. That particular part is true, but TLD operators often load the zone files in memory in their authoritative name servers. So that means that the authoritative name servers also need to be scaled up proportionally. Besides the zone size, we also looked into the signing and validation time of the entire zone. And here we make a distinction between using this AVX2 extension that I talked about. That's here in the grayed out part. And also the part when you do use AVX2, that's on the right-hand side. Now, we cannot see the grayed out part very well, but there you see that if you don't use these CPU extensions, then the signing time for the post-quantum algorithms goes up by quite a bit. But if we use the accelerated versions of those algorithms, we see that the post-quantum algorithms perform roughly similar to the algorithms that we are used to already. So in particular, Falcon, the post-quantum algorithm, performs roughly similar to RSA, and Mayo performs roughly similar to elliptic curve. So that's yeah, that's good to know. And when it comes to validation of the entire .NL zone, there is a similar story. So here we see that the Falcon post-quantum algorithm has a roughly similar performance to algorithm 13 if you use this accelerated version of the algorithm. And Mayo then performs roughly similar to RSA. So the conclusions from our study here is that the impact on computation time looks comparable. No, let me restart that. The impact of post-quantum algorithms when it comes to computation time that's needed seems to be okay in a sense that it is comparable to what we have experience with now, but only if one uses the accelerated versions or implementations of these algorithms. So that's an important distinction. But yeah, the zone files do become quite a bit bigger, and that of course also affects the size of the DNS answers, something that Benoit already has alluded to as well. Yeah, we published about this in a paper that you can download here if you're interested. And then now I will talk about the research that we are doing now, and that's basically a follow-up question on the previous research, because I said that the size of the zones increase and also the sizes of the DNS answers increase. So then a question that one asks is, what is the impact then on DNS resolvers in the DNS ecosystem? And that's what I'm going to tell you about now. And the impact on DNS resolvers matters a lot because, DNS resolvers are the entry point of the users into the DNS ecosystem. And DNS resolvers also have to do a lot of work to get the answers for the users. So we need to make sure that still performs well when we transition to post-quantum. In the past, we have, for instance, seen resource exhaustion attacks on DNS resolvers. DNS resolvers can be vulnerable to all kinds of resource exhaustion attacks if we are not careful in how we approach this. So that's why we want to know, okay, if we use post-quantum algorithms in DNSSEC, what is the impact for the resolver? We do this research together with SURF. SURF is the organization in the Netherlands that runs the education networks for universities and schools, or higher education. And we do this research together also with University of Twente. Now, what we want to do in this research, we want to know what is the impact of post-quantum on resolvers, on DNS resolvers. So what we want to do is we want to have realistic data that we can work with and that we can put in a testbed to evaluate what happens. So what we need for this is to replay realistic DNS traffic. And later I will show some diagrams to indicate what I mean by that. But this process consists of a couple of steps. So first we need to collect real world data from a DNS resolver. And it's important we want to anonymize this data. I will go into that later a little bit. And based on the answers that we collect at the resolver, we rebuild DNS zones. So for instance, SIDN.nl and Afnic.fr, we can rebuild that then based on the queries that we have seen. And then we can sign all of the zones that we generate with post-quantum algorithms as well as DNSSEC algorithms that we use today. And then we can replay the queries and then do measurements. Now, an important point is the data that we are working with is anonymized. Because, I personally really do not want to see the privacy-sensitive data of the resolver that SURF operates, and that's also not something that SURF wants. So what we do is SURF collects the data, and then they anonymize it in such a way that we do not see the contents of the DNS traffic, but the structure of the DNS traffic is preserved. So for instance, domain names are substituted with a domain name that is of the same length. And here I will go into detail a little bit more. So here in the diagram is the resolver that a lot of clients of Surf talk to, and they resolve all of the domain names on the internet. So if someone wants to know the answer to sidn.nl, then the resolver will talk to all kinds of authoritative name servers on the internet. And now to collect the data that we need for this research, the resolver sends the query that it gets to a collector that is shown here. And then what we end up with is a query log. So here we can see that someone asked for surf.nl for the surf.nl record, and then the A query type, and also for the MX record of sidn.nl. And then, all of this information is stored. And then also all of the answers that go along with it are also stored.
So Casper can give you 2 more minutes.
Oh, okay, I will be quick. And then we anonymize it. That is shown here. So the answers are anonymized. And then based on the anonymized answers, we can generate the DNS zones that go with it. So here we have the anonymized version of sidn.nl, and here's the anonymized version of surf.nl. And then we can perform the measurements to determine the impact. So we want to replay all of those queries on the testbed, and then we can investigate what happens to the CPU usage on the resolver and what happens to the memory use on the resolver. How many more times does it have to fall back to TCP? What is the impact on the latency, etc.? And then the goal of this research is to provide input to the DNS community. So we want to report back on this to the relevant groups within the IETF, so that they can take this into account when they standardize algorithms for the DNS. Yeah, and that's basically my presentation. If you want to know more, you can send us an email, or you can go to this website over here, or just sidnlabs.nl, and there you can find more about our research. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Casper. And I think that you've shown exactly, together with Benoit, what is already being done at this moment, but also I suppose that this is working somewhat in theory, because there's not a quantum computer yet to really test algorithms, but we're preparing for the future. One question: can you put the link you showed in your presentation on the report, please, in the chat, so that people can download it a little bit easier, probably, than from looking at the slide. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much.
Next speaker is Maarten Botterman. Maarten Botterman is an international strategic consultant based in the Netherlands and a professional board member. For example, many people will know him as the chairman of ICANN until quite recently. He will present on IS3C's plans for the PQC DNS working group that we hope to start this spring. So Maarten, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, Wout, and thank you very much also for the previous speakers for laying out the landscape so well. Why now? And this is, we're walking around in Mumbai last week at the ICANN meeting. That was a question where many people thought, oh yeah, this is relevant, and it was not on top of mind. So this is why I think we are ahead of the curve and try to stay ahead of the curve in the next step to the work that has already started by the IRTF and the IETF since a couple of years. How to operationalize the abstract functions into real services, what comes to look at it. And again, both the work from the country top level CODs.fr exploring this and .nl labs, SIDN labs, to really test the impact is one of the things that are happening at the moment, up and beyond the standards, trying to see what it means in practice. Now, what we try to bring, and it's coming from the Internet Standards Security and Safety Coalition. So this is what the S3 stands for, Standards, Security and Safety. From that perspective, to see how in a multi-stakeholder context, because it ultimately will touch us all, this would work out. So we're looking forward to work with parties that are working on it and with parties that have an interest in it to map the landscape of quantum-ready proposals and standards relevant for each layer, including the DNS layer, and to assess migration options. So whereas some registries, including SIDN and Afnic, have ample resources and dedicate ample resources to pre-think this, the range, the size of registries that all will in the end encounter this varies, and the capacities as well. So it's be very important to make sure that we don't only have excellence in the key registries, but also in all registries. Because if we want to create, keep justifiable trust in the internet and its functioning, it's important that it functions everywhere and not there it does and there it doesn't. So the migration options, and then also to produce actionable guidance on how to prepare, how to make sure that you stand ready for this, whether you're a registry, a resolver, or any other player in the field. So also this is something that is global. The internet is global. So the trust in the internet is affected by how trustworthy the internet is at the other side of the world, which is one of the reasons to help make sure that this one world, one internet is truly progressing together, is ready for the quantum age, and ready to pick up that. So again, also the outcome of these series will try to get further to the attention at the IGF, at the broader internet governance context, and with that ultimately to the UN General Meeting, General Assembly. The internet is one of the things that we all believe in should be there and should be trustworthy for the world. So having talked and having discussed this with several people at ICANN in Mumbai, the urgency isn't there, but the awareness begins to grow. And it's really the intent to launch some more insights like these, get them together, bring them in the system, generate more, and in that way progress. So if there's any questions about that, very happy to answer. But in the end, one thing is to create the standards. The other thing is to see how it works in operational practices, and ultimately how it will affect the service. So where does the rubber hit the road? Where do we see that it becomes a return on investment rather than just a cost that you could postpone if you wanted to?
Thank you, Martin. I think that brings us to the section where it's your turn as audience to ask questions. I suggest that you put up your hand with the function saying responding in below in the Zoom screen, so that I can see who would like to ask a question. So please go ahead. I don't see any hands going up. So was this all clear to you, or is there something that you would like to have explained or like to know more about? Because this is your opportunity. I do not see any hands going up. Other people who presented have a question for the other, because that could open the floor, perhaps. So,
I have one.
sure, of course.
Okay, sure. I would like to know, in your opinion, is this challenge, this technical challenge, similar to the migration to DNSSEC?
Who would like to answer, Benoit or
Yeah,
Caspar?
I can start answering, and maybe Kaspar can add also. The thing is that as soon as a PQ, a cryptographic relevant computer will exist, there will be no secrets. So it's not a matter of improving the key. As soon as this kind of computer will exist, it will put at risk any communication. So we have not, that's why we are like, there is no flag day. It's like we need to have done the transition before. And with DNSSEC, you can rely on different signatures as of today, but having existing signature on the field in a decade will not be secure at all, which is okay. So it's more or less, it's not precisely exactly the same situation. So yes, we need to be ready before the threat will happen.
I think that is the main message, Benoit. Thank you very much. Caspar, would you like to respond as well, or do we go to the next question? Because now there's some in the chat.
I'm okay with going to the next question. Yeah.
Okay, but if you'd like to respond, feel free, of course, to the first one.
Let me see. The one from Helen?
Yeah,
Oh, wait.
from Eugenio, it says,
yeah.
what's the current recommendation? Use Mayo instead of Falcon?
That's a good question, but that's a really tough one. It depends also from which perspective you're asking. If you're asking from the perspective of someone who runs is a DNS operator and wants to pick an algorithm, then my answer is, well, we have to wait until we see what gets standardized in DNSSEC and what the DNS community ends up using. But if you're generally asking me like, okay, what do I recommend for standardization in DNSSEC, then I also still don't know because the important measurements that I talked about that we're still working on, we still want to do those because we need to know what the impact on the resolvers is. And I can speculate, but it will be, it will be tricky to have a good answer to that right now.
Okay, thank you. The next is for you, I think, Benoit. It's Helen, and something changed on my screen, so I have to put it back up again. She asked the question that in your work comparing DNS with blockchain-based naming systems, do you see any alternative architectures that might be inherently more compatible with post-quantum cryptography?
It's hard to say yes and no, but from the work we have done also last year, we had a look at this, and I have like two statements from the Ethereum community. So it was from last year, but so it's like it says full quantum resistance for core protocols are still in the research phase and maybe several years away, even in the blockchain namespace. And for Bitcoin, so it's given the importance that this update would have, it can be safely expected that it would be highly reviewed by developers and adopted by all Bitcoin users. So it means they also have a lot to do. Yeah.
Thank you.
So maybe, can you hear me?
Yes, Sandosh, you can.
Yeah, it's Sandosh Balakrishnan from Afnic. So maybe adding to what Benoit responded to the question, I would say that blockchain-based naming systems are not still mature enough. So we are not sure whether it is more compatible with PQC or not. But in the case of DNS, since it has been there for a while and it is mature enough, we are looking at PQC for DNS. And the perspective should be that whether we are using the existing architecture that is compatible for PQC, or we are adapting a new architecture for PQC. So I would say that it is better to go with something that is working and working for a while and maybe adapt PQC to that architecture.
Thank you. I think that is a sound answer to this question. And yes, I'm sure that over time we will have to look at all the other topics, not necessarily IS3C, of course, but the world will have to look at all the other topics that are involved. Eugenio has another question. Do current resolver implementations support the new PQ algorithms? Who would like to answer that? I see Casper already.
Yeah, I unmuted my mic already. The answer is no, indeed. So those algorithms have not been picked up yet by the IETF to look at for standardization. And maybe an interesting piece to read about this is the following. I will put it in the chat. It is a internet draft that some people wrote about the DNSSEC algorithm lifecycle. And under section 2, you see the phases the phases in the life cycle of a DNSSEC algorithm. And basically, the post-quantum algorithms are still in phase 1, to some extent at least. So some of the algorithms are still under development by the cryptographic community. So Mayo is an example of that. And the Falcon algorithm is about to be standardized by NIST. So it can soon be used for general purposes on the internet, but that does not mean that that it can be used in DNSSEC yet, because for that the DNS community needs to decide that they want to use it first and then implement it, integrate it, etc. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Caspar. There's a question from Maarten Botteman. What expectation is that quantum internet will lead to fully different concept of internet working as opposed to quantum internet relying on the classical underlying infrastructure? So who would like to answer that first, Caspar or Benoit?
Very hard question. I don't know if I need to thank you, Martin. I think the scope is to have and to study and contribute to make the classical underlying infrastructure compatible with PQC and PQC resistance. Since we don't, from some papers or articles I've read about internet, quantum internet, it's still like a bit foggy to me. So it's very hard to understand because even defining quantum internet is, I think, quite tough. So if someone has a definition or a very meaningful content, I would be very happy to have a look at them.
So if I may add to that, this is really about the migration, right? Because right now the most logical thing seems to be to build the quantum services on the traditional internet and use the quantum encryption on the traditional approaches. But ultimately, it's likely that we shift. So how do we keep track of that? How do we make sure that we follow that as well? But I appreciate there's no full answers. I would have been surprised, Benoit, if you had the perfect answer.
Yeah, no, it's I hope I'm too humble to say I have an answer to do so. But when you see at like also quantum networks, it's like very also interesting, but very foggy and very broad. So, but I think it's posed very good questions about what could be also the future communications relying on quantum computers, which is not the situation here.
Okay, thank you. I don't see other questions, so let's move on, and there will be a final round of questions at the end. That I think that what we've heard is that we are looking at a gigantic challenge that the whole world faces at this point in time. And we've heard these concerns voiced, we have challenges identified and consequences discussed and potential solutions suggested. But right now, at this point in time, two things are certain. The first is that billions of research money are being invested in the development of quantum computers. And the OECD, in a report earlier this year, estimated that at $55 billion of research money. And the second is that a quantum computer will be able to break all current security algorithms. And besides all that, the first quantum products are already on the market. And although I've been told that they're mostly in censoring, fact is that some countries are saying we'll be coming up with the first products pretty soon, and they will be going to market somewhat this or next year. And that is the result of that billions of research money. So many people agree, however, that a fully operating quantum computer is at a minimum a decade, if not further away. However, to state that it is not necessary to act now on post-quantum cryptography, I can't speak the word, sorry, pronounce the word, cryptography is the equivalent of sticking your head into the sand. Why? On the one hand, a major breakthrough could be one eureka moment away at this point in time, while on the other, we waste valuable time to protect ourselves. Not acting today is like that movie on Netflix called Don't Look Up, where a comet is heading towards Earth and everybody is ignoring it by not looking to the sky. So in other words, just as long as you don't look up, nothing is happening. To avert catastrophe, losing all our data, using everything that is now locked up behind algorithms on the internet, it will take a timely and coordinated action by many and very different stakeholders. In ICT, there's only one example of joint agreed upon and coordinated action, and that is the Y2K bug. People were able then to move along a protocol that was designed to prevent harm. And I know from some people that harm was prevented by taking the right steps at the right time. So we are in need of an equivalent action program today. What's currently happening is mainly focusing on commercial rollout of quantum computers overlooks two factors. And the first is that to break algorithms, only enough power is necessary. And two, research is already combining current computers with quantum features. And what if that eureka moment comes from there first? And on top of that, what if a rogue actor has a great hack in place and is able to deploy that power first? So we have no time to lose. And why is that? Because what lies ahead is a gargantuan task. Those involved will have to agree on the PQC standards. They will have to convince all stakeholders to act more or less at the same time and make PQC the new standard, while deploying the current standards, the new security-related standards like DNS security and RPKI, etc., 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 at the same time, because the underlying standards need to be up to date as well. So let's face it, the deployment of these new security-related standards is not something the ICT world is very good at. And more, procuring ICT by design is not something procurement offices of private and public organizations are exceptionally good at. And all this has to change, so that includes a change in attitude, in mentality to develop, manufacture, offering and procuring ICTs. Besides, we are talking about every device, every sensor, every connection, the whole internet layer, etc., etc., etc. So the DNS use case that we are proposing here can become a blueprint for all other challenges ahead. So how can we progress? This project will work on exactly this topic. We plan to instate two working groups, one on the DNS and one on routing. And the working groups are filled with experts from the technical community and academia, and over time we will most likely need other stakeholders as well. So what will be the task of these two working groups? 1. They will map the landscape of quantum-ready proposals and standards relevant to each layer. B. 2, sorry. Assess migration options and identify major challenges. C, produce actionable guidance for a timely, safe transition by producing phased roadmaps. And D, coordinate globally with operators, vendors, standards bodies, CSIRTs, governments and regulators to avoid fragmentation and a quantum security divide. 5, advise a different stakeholder group on calls for action that will ensure and aid the PQC transition. And finally, along the way, do continuous outreach to raise awareness at each step with the individual stakeholder groups. And experts are invited to join these working groups. You can indicate your interest now or contact us after the webinar. We plan to do this work in 2026, 2027, and a final outreach in 2028. In order to be successful, it needs professional support. So people who are professionals and have an interest in getting this right. On the other hand, we need organizational support so that we can coordinate, provide a secretariat, do the reporting for the working group, and assist with all the outreach that needs to happen in the stakeholder groups. So we will do that in the IGF ecosystem, but also beyond, so as for example, in ICANN, the RIRs, or other stakeholder groups. In order to be able to offer professional support, we need financial support to pay these professionals. The goal is to present a roadmap for the world to act upon, and that it's not only a piece of digital paper, but has general support that ensures follow-up actions. The blueprint of this roadmap will be actionable for all similar topics, as this discussion does not stop with PQC for DNS and routing. To start now gives us the chance to be PQC ready when the time is there. And the task is gargantuan, and it will take many years. But every day we lose is a day we've lost. So we expect, we invite experts to join, and organizations who are invited to financial support IS3C so that we can lead this initiative. And then there's one more procedural comment that I have to make. I've been approached from a few different sources saying you need to have a gender balanced panel in your webinars. And believe me, I've tried. We reached out in many different stakeholder groups, and we only have males who have signed up to the working groups and presenters. So if I saw a few ladies online, if you're interested to join this work, please sign up, because this is not a male thing. This is something that includes everybody, but so far nobody else stood up. So I just wanted to make this on the record so that it's clear that we have seriously tried. So that said, there's a final round of questions possible on the comments that I've made, and then I'll ask all the presenters to give a final short statement. So I see Helen saying, let me continue the dialogue if time permits, given that blockchain naming systems are still immature but could offer quantum resistance architectures in the future. Do you see a role for hybrid strategies, for example, leveraging DNS stability today while experimenting with blockchain namespaces in parallel to stress test PQC compatibility at scale? Sandosh, you've answered that. Lars, would you like to take this first?
Yeah. If I see that, when you see from the perspective, at ICANN, there are discussions about how about responsibly integrating blockchain-based name service with DNS. So I feel that the blockchain-based name service, if they want to be at a name service perspective, they should first get themselves having DNSSEC. Then once DNSSEC security is being added to these namespaces, then maybe we could have a look at PQC. But as far as now, I think it is not prudent from a stability perspective to experiment a hybrid approach, because the one that is working quite well is the DNS architecture, which has been used by many services, and a hybrid approach may not be good from my perspective, it's better for the blockchain-based naming service to evolve and then try to integrate with DNS.
You see a thumb up, Benoit. Would you like to add, or are you just happy?
Nothing to add. Perfect.
Great, thank you. I put my email address in the chat so that if you're interested, you can contact me. Is there any other question on anything that's been presented today? So don't hesitate, because this is the opportunity to do so.
Not let me add one last thought to this discussion. Really good discussion. The thing is, we don't know how the future will look like. 25 years ago, people didn't know that the internet would be today what it is today. I dare say today we don't know how the internet will look like in 10 years' time. Yet at the same time, the internet has become something that is so important for the whole world that there's no way we can let it down. So next to the security practices, the standardization, etc., we also have the operational practices that we need to use to transit. We don't have the answers today of how the full transition will look like, but it's clear that the first transition will be using the current, what would say, classic internet to support and provide the entry point to quantum that will not be stoppable in the end. So hence my support and also keen interest to progress this together with advanced labs like Afnic and SDN, but also with people who just have questions. And so how is it going to look like? How do we going to make sure the service of tomorrow will be reliably going across the internet? So thanks for organizing that.
Thank you, Martin. I think you've made your final statement with this comment. Thank you. Benoit, what is your final takeaway or final message?
So 2 short sentences. So please join the initiative. Also test, experiment, report back, share like Caspar also did it today and IDM. It's very important for the DNS community, and not only from the registry perspective, but also we need report back and share from DNS hosting providers, DNS resolver providers also. And finally, the question is not if, but how and when to make this transition together without compromising trust in the internet infrastructure security mechanism we need. Thank you.
Thank you, Benoit. And Caspar?
Yeah, thanks for organizing this event. Indeed, yeah, there's still lots of work to be done, lots of technical work, and also work on the governance and stuff like that. I'm really excited about doing the work that's necessary to evaluate what the post-quantum DNSSEC looks like. So yeah, I encourage everybody to look into it and see if they can help out.
Thank you, Caspar. And Caspar and Sandosh, who also commented twice, are 2 of the people who signed up to the working group for the DNS. So we're very happy to have you. Thank you for that. And that leads me to finalize. I think what I've taken away of this process that we're now in for just over a year as IS3C is that there is something ahead that will change the world as we know it. At least the internet world as we know it, but probably more than just that. And that we have time to prepare. And as I said, as the last sentence, every day we lose is a day we have lost. And we have to start moving towards a new security. And I hope that the world will be better prepared than for the changes to DNS security, etc. So that leads me to say that we have a webinar on routing. That is 2 weeks and a day from now, on the 2nd of April, also at 1400 CET, but then 1200 UTC as we're moving to summertime next week. That we have interesting speakers as well who will be sharing with us the challenges that we face. And so I hope to be able to welcome you there as well. Let me thank you, Benoit, Gaspar, and Martin for your presentations, and the IGF Secretariat for graciously hosting this meeting. Thank you very much. And I wish you all a very pleasant day, and please reach out if you're interested to join this initiative, because this is something we need experts for. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.